Well, hello, our fellow friends, our fellow neighbors, and our fellow shining stars. Our next trolley stop is here, and our next trolley stop is now. Welcome back to another all-new episode of the PR from the Heart Neighborly Reviews Bookcast. To be precise, we have reached episode number 16. That is the 16th trolley stop here at the Neighborly Reviews Bookcast at PR from the Heart. My name is John Massalonis, the manager here at PR from the Heart, joined as always each and every month. You remember him and you love him as the beloved Mr. McFeely. On the long-running children's television program, Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, we know him and we love him as David Newell. David, happy summer to you, happy early Father's Day to you, and happy summer reading season, because we are fully immersed in the summer reading season. And today on the Bookcast, we've got 3 empowering reads to be able to share with our listeners and viewers, our friends and neighbors, and our fellow shining stars to enjoy over the summer ahead and beyond.
That's right. And the first one is Oliver and the Wishy Star, right?
That is correct. Yes, just some brief housekeeping, because I know that David and I are so excited to be able to dive into the pages of all of these 3 brand new heartfelt children's books, which we do each and every month here at the Neighborly Reviews Bookcast. If you are new to the program, David and I, we take the time to be able to deliver heartfelt reviews from some of the newest children's books, from some of the shining stars in the kidlit community right here at PR from the Heart. And each and every month, we are proud to pledge our support to Reading is Fundamental Pittsburgh. That is the Pittsburgh chapter of the largest children's literacy non-for-profit organization in the United States. That is where David still resides. That's still where he hangs his hat each and every day after his time at Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. But Reading is Fundamental Pittsburgh does such great work for children, parents, families, those that come especially from low-income families across the country. They provide children's books, developmental resources, and literacy tools for little ones all across the country. And in Pittsburgh alone, did you know that last year, Reading is Fundamental Pittsburgh delivered over 100,000 children's, I should say over 23,000 children's books to over 100,000 children in need. That is quite a large number of children's books and quite a large number of little ones to be of service to. So we are honored and privileged to be able to pledge our support each and every month here at the Neighborly Reviews Bookcast to Reading is Fundamental Pittsburgh. We encourage all of you, our listeners and viewers, our friends and neighbors, and our fellow shining stars, if you feel guided to do so, to pledge your support to Reading is Fundamental Pittsburgh. We have included their official website in the link below. That is rifpittsburgh.org/donate. Remember that no donation is too large, no donation is too small in the process. That's just one of the many ways that you can pledge your support for our little ones, especially those who are going through some challenging times right now. And also, if this bookcast is inspiring you, if you're saying, I am super excited for the summer reading season to be able to dive into these pages, into the pages of these brand new heartfelt children's books with you, John, and with you, David, if most importantly, you want to be able to pass along this message to someone needed, if there's someone that is a little one that you know of that could benefit from these 3 children's books, we encourage you, if you haven't had the chance to do so, to subscribe to PR from the Heart's official YouTube channel and to share this very special trolley stop that is episode number 16 of the Neighborly Reviews Bookcast. And while there, if you missed any of our other 15 previous trolley stops, you can see how David and I have evolved over the course of the past year and a half nearly, and how this bookcast has grown by leaps and bounds. So we want to thank all of you for your continued support of the Neighborly Reviews Bookcast. So David, yes, it is time to dive into the pages of our first children's book. The trolley goes from Sandy. We're going to be racking up a lot of mileage here this month. We're going to be going from San Diego to Pittsburgh, all the way out to the beautiful state of Utah. And we will be diving into the pages now of award-winning children's author Jennifer Decker and her brand new children's book, Oliver and the Wishing Star. And if you're a fan of dogs, this is the book for you. And if you're a fan of wishing upon a star, if you remember, Jiminy Cricket from Pinocchio, When You Wish Upon a Star, this is the book for you. But it's a pretty exciting read, needless to say, David.
Yeah, well, it is, and I just want to remind people who maybe this is their first bookcast that we're not here to criticize the books. We're here to present what's out there for families with young children.
Correct.
And you selected 3 similar books in their theme. It's all about it's all inside. It's up to you. It's all inside of you. You've got the power. And that theme runs through these 3 books. But Oliver and the Wishing Star, and the overview again is in the dedication. Jennifer wrote a dedication to my family and friends and everyone who's ever wished they were someone else. And I'm sure someone at some point has always done that. And this sentence sums up the book too. The grass beneath your feet is greener than you think. Mm-hmm. Well, Oliver says, bye, Mom. I'm going to Finn's for a swim and I'll be back for dinner. That's how the book opens. Oliver being the star of the book. Well, not so fast. Not so fast. You have homework. Oliver says, well, I'll finish it when I get back. And Mom reminds him, the last time that you went to Finn's house without finishing your homework, you were up past your bedtime, and the next day you fell asleep in class. But Mom pleaded Oliver, oh, now you do this, you take Cooper, speaking of dogs, that's the family dog, Cooper, for a walk, and then you can start your homework. So that's how the book starts off. Well, during the dog walk, Oliver thought to himself, that's not fair. Missing out on all the fun because teacher gave us homework. Dogs have it so easy, he says. No responsibility. Cooper has it so easy. As they walked along, Oliver thought about being a dog, and they come to a crosswalk, and he knew he wasn't to cross the street alone. Well, who's going to stop me? No one. And he stepped off the curb, but he turned around. Breaking the rules wasn't any more fun than following them. Cooper, you're so lucky. No homework, no chores, and no eating broccoli. I wish I were a dog. Then he saw a falling star that you referred to earlier, and he made a wish, but nothing happened. He flopped on his bed when he got home and took a nap, but he awoke when Cooper was growling. Well, what's the matter, Cooper? And then Oliver saw himself in the mirror. His wish had come true. He turned into a dog. And then he hopped out of the window before Mom saw him. Off he goes down the street. So now he's a dog. I'm a free man. I mean, a free dog. But Oliver's happiness was soon over. It got dark, colder, and rainy, and he was hungry. Oh, and he saw a neighbor lady who always sort of takes care of the stray dogs in the neighborhood, and she gave him a snack. Of course, it was dog food, and no, I won't eat it, and barking, and he jumped off the porch and he headed home. This is Oliver as the dog. He thought maybe Mom would recognize him and feed him. But when he got home, his parents were eating without him. Now this is... They didn't even notice I was gone. Oliver's looking in the window when out of nowhere, the dog catcher caught Oliver, thinking, of course, that he was a dog. Let me go, Oliver screamed, and he called for his mother to help me. Oliver, wake up. You had some crazy dream. And Oliver said, well, it wasn't a dream. I was a dog. Oliver told his mom about the wish he made on the falling star. Oh, Oliver, it was just a bad dream. Come on down to dinner. Dinner's ready. Well, Mom left the room and Oliver jumped out of bed, but he noticed his feet were still covered with mud. It wasn't a dream. And now here is up for interpretation, right? You think that his feet still had the mud on it from being out early, or there was a connection there. It's up to the reader to decide, right? Is that what you would...
One of the great things about this book, there's so many amazing things about this book alone, but specifically to this point is that, if you're a little one, I can imagine, okay, so he turned back into a human, but he had the experience of being a dog and he still believes that. Perhaps he was playing with his dog afterwards. Perhaps he didn't have the opportunities to just clean up, kind of thing. So it really leaves open for interpretation. You're right at the very end of the book, like a cliffhanger. Yeah. But I really believe in my heart of hearts that experience of him being a dog actually happened.
Yes. Okay. And so that could be a point of discussion if you're reading this to a child who's a preschooler and can't read yet. Well, so be it. It could be the cliffhanger right there. But at dinner, Oliver's dad asked him to say grace. In his grace, Oliver thanked for the food, and he thanked for his mom and dad, and he said, "Thanks for not making me a dog." And what was the last thing you said? His father asked. "Oh, nothing," said Oliver. And on the last page, we see the family at the dinner table, and Oliver was enjoying a plate of spaghetti, and he promised himself never to wish he was anyone else or anything else. I'm Oliver, and that is pretty good. And that's how the book ends, with that message. And it's a sweet book. And again, as you can suspend that one cliffhanger there, and I think that is a point of discussion. So
I agree.
It would be a wonderful book to read to a young child, or I think it's three years on up to maybe an early elementary book, but it has some humor to it too. I think a lightheartedness. The teacher giving homework. It's her fault that I can't do anything. The teacher gave us too much homework, and Mom won't let me go out. At any rate, that is Oliver and the Wishing Star.
David, I'm so glad that we're sharing this book at this particular point in time. First of all, this is one of my favorite books in the 16 months we've been doing the Bookcast in terms of the overall theme, message, story, illustrations. We don't play favorites here on the Bookcast because all the books that we share are important. But as you know, each and every time that we start a Bookcast, we always refer to our listeners and viewers, our friends and neighbors, as our fellow shining stars. So first off, when I heard the title, Oliver and the Wishing Star, I said, this is a book that needs to be covered on the Neighborly Reviews Bookcast. There are little ones out there, and us as big kids alike, there's many times that we feel that, especially for us as grown-ups, we can see our friend from high school has the bigger house than we do, or someone maybe has a better relationship, a stronger marriage. Maybe you have more finances than someone else. So it's very easy to say, I wish I were that person. So I feel that this book is not only meant for children, but also for children of all ages. I feel that adults, especially at this particular point in time, could benefit from this book as well too. But there are little ones that might be going through some sort of a struggle, whether it be small or large, and they might see similar things like their best friend lives in a bigger house, or their best friend is the star of the baseball team or the football team, and maybe they really can't play sports that well, and they wish that they were someone else. So I feel that that's just one of the redeeming qualities of the story. Plus the fact, as you said, there's a lot of humor and lightheartedness along the way as well too. I want to give a proper mention to Krish Vindi, who is Jennifer's illustrator, who did such a fantastic job with the illustrations. When you take a look at Oliver, when he becomes the dog, he's got those big eyes. You know how there's sometimes when you have dogs, and they've got those big eyes, and you can just literally see their heart and their soul right in their eyes. You can see that when Oliver becomes the dog. And one of my favorite illustration spreads is that when Oliver sees his family eating dinner, there's the missing person at the table, and the family is wondering, where's Oliver? He's not here. And they're very sad. So you can see the tears in Oliver's eyes. You can see the sadness in his mom's eyes and his dad's eyes as well too. The story flows along so beautifully. It has this captivating magic almost, and it does remind little ones that of just so many different things. And especially for the summer reading season, David, it's important because little ones have got so many different things that they can choose from, whether it be going to a baseball game, going to a concert, going to the amusement park, going to the water park. So if you're going to take the time to read a children's book with a little one this summer, if there's a short yet empowering yet impactful read, these are the kinds of books that we're sharing here specifically on the June edition of the Neighborly Reviews Bookcast that will be right up your alley, especially Oliver and the Wishing Star.
That's right. But it takes that special adult to introduce children to reading. I don't think every child picks up a book automatically and reads voraciously, but I do think they need to be introduced to it. And that's, I hope, what this bookcast is helping doing, and letting adults know that they can introduce children to books at almost at any age. Even at 1 year old, there's picture books with bright colors, and
That's right.
on down to wonderful books for 7, 8, 9-year-olds. So this is the time to get children interested in reading at a young age.
That is 100% correct. I also want to make mention, I believe this is the second book. We've shared different stories about dogs in our time during the Neighborly Reviews bookcast up to this particular point in time, but I believe this is the second book that has a dachshund in it, because I believe Cooper, if I'm not mistaken, he kind of looks like one of those sausage dogs.
Yes, he does.
And if you remember Best Friends Forever, A Puppy's Tale, and Portia Y. Claire, and she had her dog Sally, then it's just like, so, we get to see the different kinds of dogs that are out there. And, David, from when we're actually recording this bookcast, I've officially begun the process of bringing my dog into my life as well, too. So we're going to keep all of our listeners and viewers, our friends and neighbors, and our fellow shining stars posted, because in future editions of the bookcast, you may hear, a little ruff ruff here, there, and it will be coming from my furry friends. So I think especially two other things that I wanted to mention about Jennifer's book is that if you're looking for a great children's book that's dog centered, dog related, Oliver and the Wishing Star talks about so many things besides just dogs, but just having the two dogs, you've got Oliver and Cooper in there, they're both so adorable. So if your little one loves dogs, they'll be able to see that clearly in Oliver and the Wishing Star. And one of the things that I also wanted to share is the fact that Jennifer and Krish spent a lot of time putting this book together. And I feel that especially at this particular point in time in life, when we do something, it's important that we give our full, undivided attention to whatever it is that you do. For example, David, with it being the summertime, I know that you had mentioned to me that you're spending some time outdoors and cutting your lawn and making sure that everything looks beautiful outside. You give that the proper time and care and nurturance that it deserves. And when you've got your family that comes over, when you've got your neighbors that say, hey, David, you did a pretty good job on the outdoors and mowing the lawn, cutting the grass, taking care of the flowers, you can really see that in Oliver and the Wishing Star. And plus, the book has just got so many different colors. So if you're big on the oohs and ahs, whether if you're a little one or a little one at heart, again, I love so many different things about Jennifer's work, especially Oliver and the Wishing Star.
And speaking of furry animals, our next book.
Yes, there are several furry friends in our brand new children's book that we're going to be sharing here. So the trolley has gone from San Diego all the way to Pittsburgh to Utah, and then we go up north to Seattle, Washington, to the Emerald City. I believe that is what Seattle is referred to. It's either the Emerald City or the Emerald State. And
I think the Emerald City is Oz.
That's right here. That's behind
right there.
me, if I'm not mistaken. That is correct, yes. But courtesy of a wonderful social worker in Seattle who is stepping into the world of children's literature, Amka Little Lele. You've got all you need to be great. Courtesy of Mariah Kalungu, she has written her highly anticipated debut children's book. And with me being a Leo, I have to say, David, the infamous expression, Leo the lion, anytime that I see a children's book that has a lion as its main character, one of the characters, it's definitely something that I resonate to. But Mariah has had quite a journey because she was actually born in Kenya. And you can see and feel, and we'll share this as we dive into the pages, you can feel a lot of her childhood and a lot of her time in Kenya, as well as the time that she spent with her daughter, have heavily influenced her work for children and why she wrote and created Amka Little Lele.
Well, Amka Little Lele, the story takes place, and I think I'm pronouncing this correctly, I'm not quite sure, correct me, Kayaki Kingdom?
That is correct.
Kayaki Kingdom. It was a magical place. And as the book begins, the kingdom was alive because the animals were grooming themselves and the animal choir was rehearsing Happy, Happy Day. This was going to be a special day for Lele. Lele was going to be crowned king. And King Lencho, I believe that's how you pronounce his father's name. Lele's father was old and ailing. The kingdom needed a younger king. So Lele is the candidate. And during all this activity, Lele was asleep and snoring, as lions want to do, I think. When you go to the zoo, they always seem to be snoring. He liked sleeping in the mornings, excuse me, when the other animals were out starting their day. Well, Lele had a friend, Tyree. I believe that's how you pronounce it. Is that right, Tyree? Tiri. Pardon me. Tiri. He was a noisy rabbit, and he was trying to wake him up. Amka, and that's the word. It means to wake up, Amka. Have you forgotten that today's the day you're going to be crowned king? Tiri, why are you teasing me? Why do you tease me? How can I be king with my tiny paws, my funny-looking tail, and my loud roar? You have always reminded me of this, Lele said, and he told it to his rabbit friend, because I think the rabbit friend enjoyed teasing Lele about his tail and about sort of, as kids tend to do, they tease each other about, pardon me. I'm so excited about this book. I really enjoyed this book. So who should then take over the kingdom? Said Tiri, right?
Tiri.
Let me write that down so I don't say that again. Tiri, okay. Oh, Tiri said, I would make a handsome and brilliant king. This is a rabbit. With my looks and brain, Tiri said, somewhat jokingly, I think, but Tiri probably would like a chance at being the king. Lele said, I think a giraffe would make a great king, the most beautiful tail in the kingdom. In other words, in a way, going back, comparing, because Lele's tail wasn't fine, as his friend reminded him all the time, but the most beautiful tail in the kingdom was the giraffe. And so he'd be a good candidate. Oh, the elephant, said Tiri. He has the hugest feet, and Lele liked that suggestion, and let's see what happens. Oh, Lele then said, now go away, and let me sleep. You're right. Tari said, you can't be our king. You know why? Because you're lazy, the paws are too tiny, your paws, and your roar is too loud. Terry had a grin on his face, and he was teasing, and I think Lele knew this, but he was still teasing. Lele was unhappy and lazy ever since he made friends with Tiri. And I think that has something to do with a little bit of teasing and little, in a way, Tiri saw it as probably good-natured bullying in a way, but it was still some sort of a teasing. Mm-hmm. When Lele roared, Tiri would laugh and make fun of his loud roar. And a result of the teasing, Lele grew into a lazy lion. He liked sleeping and spent his days doubting whether he would ever be king. Well, Lele missed the days when he was young. He would run alongside his father and roaring, and the father liked the loud roar, and Lele was happy then. Well, why are you still sleeping on the day of your coronation? Said Papa. Well, I'm a failure, Papa. I forget how to roar and can't run fast like you. Lele was quite sad, and he was crying. Now, the next part, here's what the father replied. And I wrote these down sort of in order to reassure. The father was reassuring Lele, roar from your heart. That's a suggestion. Mm-hmm. Run as fast as you can, another suggestion, and hold your tail up. All of those things seem to bother Lele. And his father said, everything you need to be kind is inside of you. King Lencho said very reassuringly, and King Lencho again is the elderly lion, Lele's father. This advice from his father got Lele to spring to his feet, and he roared and he roared and he roared, and his roar could be heard all over the kingdom. And then he ran as fast as he could with his tail held up. Wow, I feel alive, and I feel like King Lele, he said with a joy. And Lele realized his roar was so powerful, and here he's coming around to believing in himself, that it could be heard by all the animals in the kingdom. His tiny paws had springs that made him run fast, and they helped Lele protect the kingdom. And his tail raised up helped the animals to follow him. So here he comes around, sort of the negatives are turning into the positives. Oh, and the last page says, he was ready to be king. Now it says Nami Amka. Is that pronounced correctly? N-I-M-E?
I believe it's pronounced Nime Amka.
Nime Amka roared. Lele roared. The next king has been anointed. And so the next king of the kingdom was Lele. However, on the back cover, Amka is a Swahili word that means to wake up, and that's explained.
Correct.
And big dreams can be very scary, and this is what's on the back cover that was written by the author. But they can come true if you have the courage to pursue them. Deep inside you lie the ingredients for you to succeed, dormant at times, but they can be awakened. And that's all on the back cover, which is a wonderful summation of the story.
It is.
And Mariah reminds the reader, Mariah being the author, and she had written that on the back cover, reminds the reader about those ingredients, because at the bottom of each page, which I found interesting, each page, the story goes from page to page, but the bottom where the page number is, always had on every page, there is a reminder. You've got it all. You've got all you need to be great. You've got all you need to be great. Is you turn the page, and that is a constant reminder through the book. And I think I've never seen that before in a book. And I think that's
it provides a lot of reassurance for the little ones, because obviously children learn through repetition. And, being a big fan of going to the movies, David, if you remember back in the day, like before the movies started, you would have like the commercials for the popcorn or the candy.
Right, yes.
And that was kind of the subliminal way of saying, you should go to the snack bar and check that out. I feel this is a very healthy way, especially for the mind, the heart, and the soul for the little ones, when they see you've got all that you need to be great. You have it within you. I think especially, there's a lot of kids that suffer from low self-esteem, low self-confidence. They don't believe in themselves. They struggle loving themselves, right? And there's even big kids, parents that are still kind of moving through that to some degree, whether it be small or large. So I feel that it's a very powerful message, and it's shared in such a beautiful, colorful way. So, one of the things that also comes to mind is, for many people, one of their favorite Disney movies is The Lion King. And this has a little tip of the cap almost to, The Lion King, because if you remember Simba, right? And his father's getting older, and he needs to be able to, take the reins of the kingdom, so to speak, and whatnot. So whether if your little one loves The Lion King, obviously the book is different. It's not like, The Lion King rewritten in a little bit of a different way. It is a completely different message, but it has some of those same universal threads throughout. If you're a fan of different kinds of animals as well too. Now, not only do you see Tiri, who's the rabbit, you see Amka's father as well too, but in some of the pages you see multiple animals. So like right at the very beginning of the book, you see there's a giraffe, there's a monkey, there's a toucan, it looks like, a zebra, a rhinoceros, an ostrich, a skunk, a cheetah. So you see everyone in the whole animal kingdom. And this is also helping to remind little ones about stepping into leadership. As you get older in life, even when you're in grammar school, I know that, a lot of the times schools will have like class president, right? You'll have the president, the vice president, the secretary, and the treasurer. Or even if it's as simple as you're being asked to lead some sort of assembly at school, right? So, obviously as you get older, you step into greater leadership, but little ones kind of have their own ways of stepping into leadership. And, children can be afraid. They might think, I'm not qualified to be a leader. Many children are trained and conditioned to be followers, because at the end of the day, David, we just all want to be liked. We all want to be loved. We want to be appreciated. So sometimes we feel it's easier to be a follower and not a leader. And
that's okay. And that's fine to establish that too, that being a follower, not everybody wants to be a leader. Some may be qualified to be a leader, but they don't want to be. They'd rather be a follower. So I think in a way, there's something about that in the story too, I think.
I agree. And it's also, I think one of the other messages, one of the final messages that I wanted to share is the importance of blazing your own trail.
Yes.
Right? So for example, there's times where, let's say if there's a family business, and let's say your grandfather was an accountant, your father was an accountant. So that means you have to be an accountant, right? Now, there's nothing wrong with stepping into the accounting field, so to speak, but it's so important to remember that you have your own soul signature, that you have your own skills, your own gifts, your own talents. So even like, for example, when Lele was talking about her roar, it wasn't as big as his father's roar, but it was a roar in its own right, if that makes sense as well too. And David, if I'm not mistaken, the other thing that I wanted to mention is I believe that Mariah sent you a special gift, if I'm not mistaken.
She did, and let me show you, and this is my chance to thank Mariah. Look at this bracelet.
That is beautiful.
And it opens up, and you look at that. That is, I won't snap it right now, but maybe I will, and I'll wear it in honor of Mariah for this bookcast. Mariah, thank you very much for your delivery. It's a beautiful bracelet. There it is again, and it may have some significance in the designs and colors, but I don't know that. But I bet there is a significance there with the design.
You can also see how this how Amka Little Lele talks about, it really has a connection to Mariah's homeland of Kenya, because if you walk around the city of Pittsburgh or the city of San Diego, you don't see lions and rabbits just roaming around, whereas when you're in Kenya, you can see more of that kind of environment on a regular everyday basis kind of thing as well too. The one other brief thing that I wanted to mention is that Mariah has such a beautiful goal, and actually a portion of the proceeds of Amka Little Lele is being designated to start building children's libraries in Kenya. And I feel that when someone has, because writing a children's book is great. It has the opportunity for authors to make a career out of it. But I think at the end of the day as well, too, it's so important to have the kids' best interest at heart. So Mariah's had a wonderful journey from Kenya all the way over to the United States in Seattle, but she's still doing her part to give back to those who helped her along the way. And she wants little ones back in Kenya to know the fact that they have, great resources at their fingertips with regards to children's books. So I find that very admirable. So again, one of the many reasons why you should purchase your copy of Amka Little Lele as well too. And just as an FYI, we have, of course, the links to purchase your copies of Amka Little Lele. You've got all you need to be great, along with Oliver and the Wishing Star, in the description below. And David, we're going to be headed into our third and final book. And this one holds a very special place in our heart, because over the course of these past several weeks, we've had the blessing of working alongside award-winning artist and children's author John Power to celebrate the release of his brand new children's book, Growing an Artist, the story of a landscaper and his son. John had the opportunities to travel out to Los Angeles and here in San Diego on tour So he connected with many children, parents, families, educators, those who love great children's books as well too. He had the opportunities to be featured on ABC 7 and Spectrum News 1 out in Los Angeles, a couple of television interviews with KUSI News here in San Diego. So I'm just so excited that we can share Growing an Artist, the story of a landscaper and his son. We want to thank the team at Simon & Schuster for providing us copies of John's book, and to also John for not only illustrating the book, but this is his first foray into writing children's literature plus illustrating children's literature. He's been doing this for well over 20 years, David. He's had a piece of his work recently presented to Supreme Court Justice Sona Sotomayor several years ago. He has his own postage stamp series, the Delicioso series, that actually came out several years ago. And we actually got a sneak peek of the book, David, if I remember, if I'm not mistaken, when we were finishing up dinner at the Olive Garden in Pittsburgh after our time at the Fred Rogers Center. I gave you an early sneak peek of Growing an Artist, the story of a landscaper and his son. But now we've got the official printed books in our hands, and we're sharing this with the world. So take us inside the pages of Growing an Artist, the story of a landscaper and his son.
Yes, and that, I think this is the first book we've talked about a landscaper and his son too.
I believe so.
And well, as the story begins, Papi, P-A-P-I, that's Spanish for Papa, correct?
That is correct.
Ask Mijo, and Mijo is Papi's son. Are you ready? Papi is a landscape contractor, and today is a big day for Mijo because he gets to help at work. Have a good day, Mommy calls. Mommy being the mother. Mommy, that's Spanish for mom. I'm doing this phonetically, so.
Correct. No, you're good, Dave. You're good.
I don't speak Spanish, so if I'm mispronouncing, please forgive me. Well, the first stop for Papi and Mijo is to pick up Javier, right?
Javier, correct. Javier.
He works for Mijo's dad. And before that, Javier lived in Mexico. Javier asked Mijo if he remembers the Spanish he taught him, and they exchanged some words in Spanish. And, you know, it's a wonderful way to introduce children to a different language, in this case, being Spanish, and it's actually written in Spanish in the book. And, you know, as a parent or a reader or a teacher, you could sort of translate that, say, here's what these words mean, and so forth. That could be a little place where you could stop and talk about a different language. Well, at the first house, Javier taught Mijo how to mow grass in perfect lines and how to shape bushes and trees. However, when Mijo looks up, they were at this first house, and he looked up and sees in the window, and then house next door to where they were working, it was Alex from his homeroom, from Mijo's homeroom. And Alex pretends not to see Mijo, and Mijo keeps his head down, and he feels a little awkward, but he continues to do his work. And I find this very interesting, that I'm wondering if some way Mijo feels a little embarrassed that he's in a way a laborer of sorts. And I find that a very interesting little insert. But we'll go, and it's referred to later on. Do you have any take on that?
I feel that, you know, again, one of the great things about children's books, David said, they're always open to interpretation.
Yes.
There's such a connection that Papi and his son have with one another. And I feel that one of the important messages, and we'll continue to talk about this, is the importance of hard work. And you know, there's a lot of people that do manual labor that go very, very underappreciated. If you remember, you know, during the pandemic, we would use the term essential workers, and they'd be referred to doctors and first responders and teachers. There are so many other essential workers that are out there that provide wonderful services, including those who do landscaping and contracting.
That's right. Well, it was an interesting little addition to the book. And maybe Alex, Miho wants to continue at work and doesn't want to engage with his homeroom friend. I don't know, but he continues to do his work. Poppy calls to Miho that Poppy found a nest of baby birds in one of the trees they were trimming.
Aww.
And Miho gets out his sketchbook. He carries his sketchbook.
Yep.
And begins to draw pictures of the birds. Now, this is a sign of something to come up later. And during lunch that Mommy packed for them, Miho asks his dad if he likes his work. And his dad says that being your own boss is the best thing in the world. You work hard. And this is interesting. His dad says, and sometimes you feel like you're invisible. And you referring back to something, day workers, maybe people don't pay much attention to them. They just go about their duties without people paying much attention. And that's an interesting comment. Sometimes you feel like you're invisible. But when you do something you love and can be creative, you feel proud. So it doesn't matter if people, it doesn't matter what other people think or do. It's the enjoyment that you're getting out of the job you're doing. In this case, Poppy feels so proud that he can be creative with landscaping.
Correct.
Well, Miho's dad notices Miho's sketchbook. Hey, you're getting good, he says, and this pleases Miho. Well, the next stop is a nursery, and Javier loads up some bushes and trees and vines, and Miho gets the sketchbook out and begins to draw the scene that they're doing in the where they're purchasing some landscaping materials and trees to put in lawns and some of their customers. So they go off to the next customer, and Mr. Sardisco. Sardisco is an unusual name, and I wonder if John really knows of Mr. Sardisco. He may. Well, he's a family friend, and Mr. Sardisco has over 200 rose bushes, and Mr. Sardisco is thrilled to see the special rose bush they brought for him. And he says to Miho, "No one knows more about plants than your dad." And that was a nice insertion, making Miho feel proud about his dad. His dad is doing good work. Well, the next stop, they go to the city dump, and their truck is full with bushes and waste that they and grass cuttings probably. And Miho is delighted. He loves that place. He's the city dump. The dump will recycle the waste and turn it into mulch for planting. That's what they do, and that's a nice addition too, reminding that some of these dumps take the waste and turn it into mulch, being able to be used again under trees and grass lawns and so forth.
Correct.
Well, the last stop of the day is to Mr. and Mrs. Carroll's house. The Carrolls are happy to see Miho's dad and Miho. Oh, did I say it wrong?
Miho,
okay. And they discuss how to turn an overgrown yard into a beautiful place. Miho sees the potential in the yard. If you see the illustration in the book, the yard looks beyond repair, but somehow they transform it. Well, not somehow, they do transform it. Well, that night, Miho asks his dad if he can help with the landscaping design, and I didn't know much about landscaping, but apparently you make a blueprint for what you want to plant and reconstruct and so forth. So that evening, they sat at the work table, and Miho was helping his father by adding colors to enhance what his father had designed. And in here, here's another reference to Alex, the schoolmate he saw earlier that day. And Miho was so lost in his work, he forgot to think about Alex. So there's a little tie there somewhere. "This is beautiful, Miho," says his dad, meaning the colors that he added to the design. And the next day, the dad comes home after showing the Carrolls the design that they both created. They love it. And we start creating next week. And Mommy says to me, "Miho, you have a gift." And that's an interesting line. You have a gift, encouraging her son
Yes.
that what he did to the project, his addition, was helpful, and that's so reassuring to a young child. It could have not been put in there, but you have a gift is just enough to give you a little pat on the head,
Agreed.
and encourage the child.
And that's also something that the little one will remember, because little ones, their minds and hearts are like sponges, as we've shared in past editions of the Bookcast. They can remember the one time or the many times. That's why, again, that just going back to Amka, little Lele, you've got all you need to be great. Providing that reassurance as you're guided to share with your little one, they'll remember that.
Yes. And it spurs them on to do more and to do better.
Correct.
Well, a few weeks later, they're winding up the job, and Miho says to himself, "The plans that I helped with are about to be real." And Miho gets his sketchbook, and he sees the yards that his dad made more beautiful, and sees Javier working hard, and remembers Alex's face in the window, and he begins to sketch. So all the things they did, they went to the city dump, they went to the first house where his schoolmate was looking out at their work, and he went to the Carroll's house, and all of this, Miho was sketching. And that's what I'm saying. And in the last paragraph, Miho says that he will use his art to tell stories of hardworking, passionate people who make the world more beautiful. I will tell their stories. I will tell my story. And that is a wonderful summation for that story. But John, in a note at the end of the book, and I thought that was interesting. I'll read a few of the notes I took down. John says that I was just thinking, in a way, this book is John's bio, in a way, because it's his story. He worked for his father growing up, and his dad's parents were from Mexico, and they ended up in El Paso. And John goes on to tell the reader that his family moved to California's hot Central Valley, and his father learned this landscaping business and began by working in a nursery. And after a stint in the Army, his father got a contractor's license, and his business grew. Now, I'm paraphrasing some of this, but I just thought it's an interesting, because John is putting his heart and his creativity into this story. Oh, and he mentioned that often his father's employees were migrants from Mexico, and his father sponsored them for citizenship. He not only made some trees and grass and flowers grow, he helped other people from Mexico grow in their lives too. So that's wonderful. And he began accompanying his dad on the jobs when he was 7, and John loved working on his dad's blueprints. And he says in his summation at the end of the book that he considered going into landscaping, but he found his path by studying illustration and fine art at the Art Center of Design in Pasadena.
Correct.
But he also said that landscape work is not easy. It is hard work, but it was a creative outlet that nurtured his imagination. Isn't that something that nurtured his imagination to become an illustration? And as I said earlier on, the first thing when he got his sketchbook out, we get to this later, and you see that that's where his interest in illustration and art came from. But he said his dad's eye for design inspired him to be a young artist, and he was grateful with those days he spent with helping his dad, and proud he could contribute to the family business. And as I said earlier, in the book, the Growing an Artist, it's really John's biography, a lovely book, and it introduces Spanish and establishes a work ethic. And if you want something it requires a lot of hard work. It reminds me of a Mr. Rogers song, "You've Got to Do It." If you want to ride a bicycle and ride it straight and tall, you've got to do it. In other words, you've got to practice and work at it. And in a way, that's what Fred Rogers was saying with his song. And John's saying the same thing in this book. I love the book, especially about a landscaper. And it is hard work, but it would be fun to sort of create a picture on an acre of ground or something like that. In a way, that's what they're doing. They're drawing a picture with live trees and grass and flowers and so forth, landscapers. At any rate, that's a little summation of John's, I guess, how he got involved in illustration. And that's what he is now, an illustrator.
Correct.
Right?
Yes. And I'm so excited for him, David, because he's illustrated books for nearly 20 years, and he's worked with some of the top children's authors in the world, from New York Times bestselling children's authors Susan Verde to Lisa Klein Ransom to Miranda Paul. And now he's stepping into writing children's books and illustrating books together. A couple of brief footnotes is this also reminded me, I think there was an episode of Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood which talked about how a book is made, if I'm not mistaken. And this kind of reminds me, because if you remember, when I gave you the early print of the book before it was binded together, and it just had it was just like a bunch of illustrations together, like with the story. But now in our hands we hold the book, so it actually kind of reminded me of that as well too. John has a very distinct illustration style. When you take a look at different children's books, John has a very unique soul signature, and you see it at the last illustration spread in the book. There's a picture of his family, and you have all the family members around the table. In terms of there's Poppy and Mommy, and there's Eho, and there's Mr. Sardisco. They're all gathering around the table. So if you're really wanting to connect with a children's book that has a very unique but beautiful illustration style, all of John's work carries the same theme, but theme in terms of that soul signature, but it's a little bit different. I also love this, David, because we're literally just a couple of days away from Father's Day. And I feel that one of the best, and I haven't had the pleasure of experiencing this yet, but I know that I will at some point this lifetime, one of the best bonding experiences that a father and son can have is reading together. And, and especially if you're interested in teaching your little one about Mexican heritage. This is a great way to not only introduce, the Spanish language, but to if you're not necessarily, if your little one isn't familiar of the different kinds of work that come from, different countries, and, how Mexican, Hispanic, Latin individuals are similar but different to us. You'll be able to see that. So again, whether you're, Hispanic, Latina, or you're just wanting to be able to learn a little bit more about the culture, just seeing how, especially when I was traveling with David to Los Angeles and here in San Diego, there are people that were connecting with the message that were not of Hispanic descent. And I think that's great, because there's just so many redeeming qualities in the book. We talked about the importance of art, the importance of creativity, and helping little ones to connect with their creativity. And go ahead.
And also his father helping his fellow countrymen, Mexicans, come to this country and walking them through the process of becoming a citizen, or at least a work permit, and the process of all of that. I think that is a nice statement to make too, that how his father did that in the right way.
Correct. Yeah. And one of the last things before we begin to wind down our time, David, is that I had the opportunities to share Growing an Artist, the story of a landscaper and his son, with the little ones out here in San Diego, as part of the newest installment of the PR from the Heart Storytime with Mr. John series at Glen Park in the Encinitas area of San Diego. And it was just such a beautiful experience. We're sharing some of the pictures here on screen. So being able to share these messages in different ways. Such a privilege to be able to work with John and, to be able to get this message out. So again, if you have enjoyed all 3 of these books, well, first of all, raise your hand if you have had fun on episode number 16 of the Neighborly Reviews Bookcast. These are 3 of the most beautiful children's books that you will enjoy, that your little one will enjoy, that you'll be able to enjoy together as part of this summer reading season and beyond. So if you would like to purchase your copy of Oliver and the Wishing Star, Amka, Little Lele, and Growing an Artist, the story of a landscaper and his son, we have included the links below to purchase the books through Amazon.com, as well as all 3 authors' official websites as well. To remember, on Amazon, if that is your preferred online vehicle of your choosing, by leaving a 5-star review, that is one of the many ways that you can pledge your support for Jennifer, for Mariah, for John, to let them know that they're doing wonderful and much needed work for children, parents, families, educators, those who love great children's books. You can also stop by your local library. Know that John had the opportunities to be at the La Jolla Rifford Library in San Diego as part of his tour to do an event. So you can check out all 3 of these books in your local library. If your local library or your local independent or children's bookstore does not stock Oliver and the Wishing Star, Amka, Little Lele, or Growing an Artist, the story of a landscaper and his son, you can, of course, connect with the children's librarian or the bookseller, depending upon where you're at, to let them know that these are some great empowering reads. Encourage them to be able to stock the books for circulation in the library or for purchasing at your favorite children's or independent bookstore. And I'm just so glad, David, because this summer reading season, I feel, is very important. I've been doing some research over the past couple of weeks and months, noticing how literacy levels have plummeted in certain cities across the country as the result of the pandemic. So us as parents, caregivers, and custodians of little ones, this really is the time so we can help to jumpstart our little ones and prepare them leading into the back to school season, because sooner than we know it, it'll be here, the back to school season.
That's right. And these are 3 perfect books to do that with, right?
That is 100% correct. If you have enjoyed this trolley stop, that has been episode number 16 of the Neighborly Reviews Bookcast. And again, all 3 of these messages are really encouraging, David, as you mentioned at the onset of our time together, at the top, the forefront, and the onset. All 3 books have a strong, similar theme of empowerment, that you have skills, you have gifts, you have talents, to remember how special that you are. It kind of goes back to what Mr. Rogers always mentioned at the end of each episode of The Neighborhood, how you're loved and you're special and you're unique and you have these wonderful gifts, that you're perfect just the way that you are. If this bookcast has inspired you, if these 3 books are now going to be summer staples in your home to be able to share with your little one, if you haven't had the opportunities to do so, again, one of the many ways that you can support us here at the Neighborly Reviews Bookcast is to subscribe to PR from the Heart's official YouTube channel and to share this very special trolley stop, again, that has been episode number 16 of the Neighborly Reviews Bookcast. If you are a children's author and would like for David and I to be able to share your brand new children's book as part of a forthcoming edition of the Neighborly Reviews Bookcast, you can connect with us via our official website at prfromtheheart.com, or connect with us via any of our social media platforms that you now see on screen, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, all at PR from the Heart. Just a few remaining tips of the cap. 1, to one of our favorite neighbors here in San Diego, California, Laura Kavanaugh, the host and executive producer of San Diego Living on CBS 8, the CW San Diego, which is the official home of Empowering Reads for Kids, the official television book review segment of PR from the Heart. So if you are a children's author and would love for Laura and I to be able to share your brand new children's book and review it for children, parents, families, educators, and those who love great children's books here in America's finest city, San Diego, California, if you would like to have your book be featured on a forthcoming edition of Empowering Reads for Kids, you know where to connect with us via our official website at prfromtheheart.com and any of our social media platforms on screen. We also want to give one tip of the cap as well to our neighbors here in San Diego at Unity Church of El Cajon. Each and every month, we are proud to be able to work and share special editions of the Unity of El Cajon Story Time with Mr. John, presented by PR from the Heart. So if you are a children's author and would love for me as Mr. John to be able to share your brand new children's book, to especially do our part to give back to the little ones here in San Diego, you know how to connect with us via our official website, PR from the Heart, or any of our social media platforms, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And for more information on how we can be of service to you at PR from the Heart, if you are interested in creating a book tour for the back to school season or leading into the forthcoming holiday season, if you would like to facilitate a featured television interview or interviews in a city of your choosing, if you would like to be a featured guest on our children's book spotlight series, or learn more information about our media coaching and mentoring program, you can schedule your courtesy discovery call by heading on over to prfromtheheart.com or connect with us via any of our social media platforms on screen. One final time, all three of these empowering reads are now available. We, of course, want to thank once again Jennifer Decker and Mariah Kalungu and John Para, Oliver and the Wishing Star, Amka, Little Lele. You've got all you need to be great, and Growing an Artist, the story of a landscaper and his son. They are all now available. We, of course, have the links below as to how you can purchase your copies of all three books via Amazon.com. Remember, you can leave 5-star reviews, as that is one of the many ways that you can pledge your support for Jennifer, for Mariah, and for John, to let them know that they're doing wonderful and much needed work for children, parents, families, educators, and those who love great children's books. Or you can head on over to each author's official websites as well, too, if that is your preferred online vehicle of your choosing. David, I thoroughly enjoyed our time today. Is there any parting words that you would like to share as we, sooner than we know it, it's going to be the 4th of July. Where is 2022 going, David?
It's going very speedily. And another thank you. There's my bracelet. I just want to say thanks again and a speedy delivery. So that concludes number 16.
Yes, and sooner than we know it, we also want to encourage all of you once again, if you enjoyed our in-studio episode of the Neighborly Reviews Bookcast at the Center for Media Innovation at Point Park University in downtown Pittsburgh. That is episode number 14, so that was 2 bookcasts ago. I will be returning to join David in the month of September. We are going to be reporting 2 special editions of the bookcast this fall, September and October. So if you're saying, what happened to you guys not being the 2 squares on a screen, being in person, we're going to be sharing some very special books as part of the back to school season here at PR from the Heart. And as we hear the trolley, that means that it is time to go. So we want to thank all of you for your continued support of PR from the Heart, for your continued support of the Neighborly Reviews Bookcast over these past 16 months moving forward from here, for your continued support of children's authors and illustrators like Jennifer Decker, Mariah Kalungu, and John Para, who again are doing much needed work and wonderful work for children, parents, families, and educators, and those who love great children's books, for your continued support of local libraries and children's and independent bookstores, truly the pillars of our community. But above all else, we want to thank you for helping us to walk home the children of the world. One tip of the cap to one of our favorite neighbors, of course. David spent many years of his life with the great and beloved Mr. Rogers, the long-running children's television program, Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. He reminded us in his own way each and every day. In his private numerology, 143 was his way of saying, I love you. As there's 1 letter in I, 4 letters in love, and 3 letters in you. It's a little tip of the cap. A little tip of the cap to Fred, to Mr. Rogers. We like to share 243 as we close out episode number 16 of the Neighborly Reviews Bookcast. We are reminding all of you that you are loved, that you are special, that you are unique. You are unique. You are whole. You are healthy. You are complete just the way that you are. There's 2 letters in we, 4 letters in love, 3 letters in you. That is our reminder that we like you, that we love you just the way that you are. For David Newell, for myself, John Massalonis, thank you for spending some time with us here in our neighborhood. Our fellow friends, our fellow neighbors, and our fellow shining stars, we hope that you've enjoyed episode number 16 of the Neighborly Reviews Bookcast. We hope that you continue to enjoy your summer reading season, and we will be back once again for another all-new trolley stop, which will be magical indeed. Episode number 17 is just upon the horizon. So once again, for David and for myself, thank you for helping us to walk home the children of the world, our fellow friends, our fellow neighbors, and our fellow shining stars. Goodbye for now.
Bye-bye.